And one of the best and worst thing I've ever done was booking Symphony Hall, Boston Symphony Hall. And they were like, oh, the deposit is this much. And I had just that money. I was like, let's go. And so I did. And this was back in 2012. Yes. So 2012, October 7th. So we booked the show. And I was like, you know what, like we're gonna just like pack the place, and we're just gonna bring the full orchestra and like everything. And obviously, like at some point, I realized how much money I'm risking, and I didn't have any of that. So I talked to like all my friends and please promoting, and I did all kinds of things to like make it work, and did a Kickstarter campaign to fund the live album, so part of it can compensate the show. And magically, like things worked out. And because it was just so hyped, like TV came over and newspapers came and like they covered all the stuff, and Japanese national TV network came over, like they flew over, and then like they did a show for me. And so, yeah, like that. And then we released an album, and that was really like the moment when I knew, okay, this can really become a business.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Siobhán Cronin. Welcome to another episode of 2020. I'm here with my cohorts, Cory and Benny Goodman. And this week, we have part one with Shota Nakama, creator of the Video Game Orchestra, CEO of Soundtrack Production Company. Super interesting episode.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing.
The guy that I've spent this entire episode stealing all of his ideas and learning from everything that he's done.
He's the original Japanese rebel, decided, fuck middle school, fuck high school. I'm just going to go to the U.S. and be a guitar hero.
Yep.
Mind-blowing. Yeah. Mind-blowing.
You know, anyone that's kind of interested, obviously, if you like video game music, you know, being the founder of Video Game Orchestra, which is one of the biggest acts in the world, it's fascinating. But even if you're not into that, hearing his story of how he got to that point, it's pretty incredible from a business standpoint and a creative standpoint.
Mind-blowing.
God damn you.
All right.
God damn you.
God damn you, Ben. Part one with Shota Nakama.
Welcome to another episode of 2020. We're just off the bat rolling on this one, but we're super happy to welcome Shota Nakama. And I practiced that. No, the T. Shota Nakama. All right. He is the founder, producer, musical director of Video Game Orchestra, also the CEO of Soundtrack Production Company, production company. Mm-hmm. Very excited to hear more about that, and also, you know, someone that we've spoken with in the past, super talented, and a few shared experiences and networks that we definitely got to get into, including what is being held right now by Mr. Benny Goodman over there.
Yeah,
Not just
can we
me.
say what it is for the people listening? We check out the YouTube cast. We've got 2 Jason Becker guitars, right?
So one of the things that Shota and I immediately, well, all three of us, in fact, we should give the backstory, because this gentleman showed up at my studio randomly because one of our friends was shooting a Tascam commercial, and they're like, well, we should go to a real huge giant studio. And my buddy was smart. He's like, who goes to a real studio now? Let's go to a crappy basement studio like Ben's. We should shoot there. That's more realistic. People can't afford a real studio. Let's go to Ben's fake studio. And then this gentleman walks in, and we're recording Lost Symphony, which is, again, our band that's, you know, symphonic, like kind of like shred rock, almost video game music. What does this dude do? He writes video game music and works with one of our favorite guitarists, Jason Becker. Went to Sarajevo, if I'm correct, and helped with an orchestra out there. And Jason even gave him one of his perpetual burn guitars that matches my Jason Becker perpetual burn guitar. And then, Cory, if you'll put it up on the screen at some point, hashtag ALS awareness for Jason. Because
somewhere over here,
I don't know if Shota's doing this, but I'm trying to put this in people's hands so that we can continue to create and raise awareness of the story of Jason Becker, because as much as we know about Jason Becker, and for those that don't know who he is, please go onto YouTube, watch, be inspired, laugh, cry, laugh, then cry again, and then go play guitar harder and learn about Jason Becker, because this gentleman on our podcast today arranged the orchestra. Am I correct here that you arranged the orchestra to my favorite guitarist in the fucking world, and he came down to our studio when we were doing like our diet version of that with Lost Symphony, and the synchronicities of that is just insane. So I'm going to stop talking now, but that's crazy to me.
Yes, when we did meet you for that first time, we were all in the studio that we were recording Lost Symphony. So it's rare that the four of us have all been in the same room. Considering the show has started.
Yeah.
We don't even have our band that's all been in the same room, but we have. And I just remember having a ton of questions, as soon as you told us what you did. So I'm very excited for today. So I'll give you a chance. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be on the show, and I get to recently I do a lot of orchestral writings, and I just sit in front of my computer and just watch finale. That's all I do. So being able to converse with people I know, and also people who have same passion in the similar music, this is great. Really great.
I'm particularly excited because I'm the orchestra nerd in the room here. I mean, I'm a violinist, grew up playing orchestra music, and I'm super curious to hear about your background and how you got into writing and arranging specifically. Because even as a violinist, I spent my whole life playing orchestral music. It wasn't until I got out of school, finished a master's degree, that I was ever even asked to consider writing an arrangement for something. And there's a process there of learning it and understanding the orchestra. Is this something you studied, or can you tell us a little bit about your background, your education leading up to that?
Yeah, so I grew up in this little small island called Okinawa, and the south of Japan, where Mr. Miyagi is from. So if you haven't watched Cobra Kai, because Daniel-san actually goes to Okinawa, he actually did go.
Does it bother you that the actor doesn't speak at all? What was his name? Patrick, or whatever. He talks yo, what's up, dude? And then it's oh, Mr. Miyagi. Oh, yeah. Wax on, wax off.
But so, back in days, when they did the Karate Kid, they didn't fly there. But, in Cobra Kai Season 3, they actually did. And they have actors from Okinawa, speaking our own dialect. Oh. So, they wanted to, really honor the culture. So I was and also they passed by my place, which was kind of
really.
Which
I
was
have to
crazy.
go back and watch it. I love that.
I was just watching it. I was wait a second, I know this film.
That's wild.
That's great.
We have to find the scene.
Yes, please. Yeah. So I grew up there, and I sort of dropped out from middle school, and I didn't go to high school. And my dad is a doctor, so I did a classic you should never do this. And back when I was 14 or 15, I think I was 15, I met the musical Deep Purple, and that was it. Next day, I was declaring my future as a musician, and I was begging my mom to get me a guitar. And my uncle used to be in the band, so he's okay, I'm just gonna get a guitar. So here you go. And the moment when I held the guitar, that was it. I was I'm gonna be a fucking rock star.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how did that blow over with your parents, though, deciding to quit middle school? Because that's a pretty bold move.
Well, and also Japan is pretty conservative, so
Sure.
Not going to high school was a sin. Yeah, everybody thought I was very stupid, and yes, all my friends thought I was just really dumb. Because
how about now?
Yeah.
When you're playing all these giant conventions. So I want to let you know. So when I first did my research on you, back when you came down to my studio, I saw you at, I think it was at PAX, the giant video game convention with a whole orchestra, a gajillion people on stage, and you're just shredding guitar with this. It's basically what Siobhán, myself, and Cory dream of doing, and then try to create the moon landing in our studio, except you do it in front of a bunch of people that actually dress up and love it, do this cosplay stuff, and these people love you.
Thank you.
Is that crazy? That you're part, because my brother played video games growing up, and he used to make mixes of the Sonic the Hedgehog music because he was so into the sound of the video games. I can only imagine now that they have badass music like you, that people must become emotionally attached beyond just oh, I really like that song. It's but my character died.
Yeah, it's the video game music has become something different. Because back in days it was just Nintendo and stuff, but now groups us and other guys we're doing the real like arrangements and like, just.
What's the
doing
name
live
of the
shows.
group?
My group is called Video Game Orchestra.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought that's what it was, but I'm like, is that the generic name
Ben,
for it, or is
welcome
that
to
the actual name?
conversation.
No, we actually trademarked it, so we own the name.
That's amazing.
That's
That's the
amazing.
smartest thing ever, because I actually started Lost Symphony as the Video Game Orchestra, and then we called, and our trademark guys like, we can't do that, so we're like, fuck it, Lost Symphony.
Yeah, we own it. We own it.
Yeah, and no one can really, what's your band name? Like, oh, what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Who needs an elevator pitch, or who even needs a card? You're just like, I am. Like, does this not self-explanatory?
Well, before we get too far ahead, though, let's go back. So you got a guitar, and this like
So
inspired
I
you
got
and
the
changed
guitar,
your.
and then I told my parents that I will never go to high school, and they were like, "What the fuck?" And so then I found an alternative way, and I was able to get the GED, because like in Japan, GED is super easy, like it's very easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so then next I declared I'm gonna go to America to study music, and
So where did you get all these ideas? Because that's, I'm imagining you grew up. I mean, we grew up before really internet, and you can go on YouTube and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is what they're doing in America." So how did that like idea come to you? What made you decide I want to go there? Was it a school? How did you know what was going on?
Well, in Okinawa, because we have the biggest American military base in Asia, and so like it's very common to see a lot of Americans in cities. And I was obsessed going to this like rock and roll bar at the age of like 15, and they were letting me in, because back then like we were able to just get into like those places without an ID. Like they never ID in Japan. Like you don't have to show an ID to go into a bar in Japan still.
Interesting.
But yeah, like they let me in. They were like, oh, like in this kid, like he wants to play Deep Purple, so like great, like just bring him in and have him jam. So I just got into the stage and just play Smoke on the Water, Highway Star, Burn, and stuff. So yeah, and I started playing in like a bunch of bars close to the base as well. So like your audience is only Americans, and that's kind of made me realize that the real music is in America.
Interesting.
I was like, this is better. So let's go.
So what did that look like? How did you make the move? What was the process?
So I was talking to some of my friends, and just to figure out like how to go. And I learned that the easiest way was to be a student, because student visa, because this was before 9/11. So a student visa was just super easy to get. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to college. And which is kind of why I got the GED. And my friend was like, okay, let me just process the paperwork, because he doesn't speak English. So he did everything, and I flew.
Wow.
And like before I flew, I told all my friends and band members, and they say like, hey guys, goodbye, farewell, I'm never gonna come back.
Wow,
Yeah.
you are so bold. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I
frightening
flew,
to
and
me.
I didn't go back for like 4 years.
Uh-huh. And you
Yeah.
didn't speak English at the time, you said.
No,
Okay.
none.
Did you just like walk
Absolutely
in?
zero.
Did you just like walk into a bar and you just start playing Burn, and they're like, dude, he's playing some Blackmore, like, and it's Coverdale era Blackmore, like this guy's cool, and
Yeah.
you don't even have to speak English. Ingve loves
I
you.
didn't have to. Yeah, so I didn't have to speak anything, and I just kind of like was jamming along, because music is a language, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, then I came to the U.S. and I was in this like very suburb area in like south of Seattle. The town is called Lakewood, and because like that was the only school that accepted me, because it's like a very small community college, but they had a very good music program, and I got in there, and then I kind of studied English there, and also like music theory and all the kinds of stuff. Because before that, like I had no formal education in anything, pretty much. So yeah. I learned everything there. And then after like 4 years or 5 years, 4 years, I got tired of being in that area, because like there's nothing happening. This was after grunge. So,
Yeah.
there was no music in Seattle.
That's so funny, because a lot of the guests we've talked to before were kind of in the prime of that era, so Seattle was like such a hopping place. So it's interesting to hear your perspective after that.
Yeah, it was super dead.
Wow.
Like, yes, I played in like a bunch of taverns and stuff, but that was the extent of like how far you can get to. And this was pre-internet, so the birth of internet, and but still like we're using dial-up internet and stuff. So it's
Check
just
us
like,
out on Prodigy, guys. Prodigy. Our name of our band's A/S/L. Question mark.
So when you came here, you kind of had that I want to be a rock star attitude.
Yeah.
How did the formal music training kind of mesh with that? Was that something that you immediately latched onto, or were you more I guess formal training versus listening to records? What was your biggest kind of inspiration getting into playing guitar and everything?
I just thought it was the coolest thing to do. So I just picked up and just played by ear. I was able to read music because when I was little, I studied piano just a few years.
Okay.
So I was able to read them, but who reads guitar music, right?
Not guitarists.
Yeah.
Violinists trying to play guitar parts, probably.
Right.
Yeah. So I learned how to read tabs and just kind of learned as much as I could. And yeah, but pretty much everything, mostly by ear. Because I realized tabs had a bunch of mistakes too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so
story of my life trying to teach myself how to play off Metallica tabs. It's that's not
impossible. Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah. So then when I was pretty much done with Seattle, I applied for Berklee College of Music, and also I was gonna go to USC or maybe University of Miami, but they took down the guitar department. They used to be called studio guitar major. But then became a jazz guitar major, so I was like, "Fuck that! I can never do it."
It's a valid response.
I love jazz and stuff like Pat Metheny and all those guys, modern jazz guys. But playing is it's a lot of commitment, and I love rock and roll too much to be in that field. So yeah, but I got accepted to Berklee, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll go. And in Japan, because people think Berklee is the divine school of music, only gods can go there.
That's amazing.
Well, I mean, John Petrucci went there, so obviously, John Myung. If there's anything that we've learned, is the greatest bass player to ever go through Berklee because he's in Dream Theater.
Yeah, and Steve Vai was there, and all those big names are there.
But did you quit though? Did you quit? Because that's what you have to do.
See, exactly. Everyone tells me that, but I didn't quit. I graduated.
Well, that's why that's why you're not worth $100 million. If you had quit, you'd be 10 times better than you. Because you're amazing now. So just think about how good you would have been if you had just gone last semester and just said, "Fuck it, I'm hanging out with Petrucci. We're out."
John Mayer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, but I was a troublemaker, but I barely finished. And
like John Mayer, were you and John Mayer troublemakers together?
I think John Mayer was a far more troublemaker than me because he went before me, but I heard he was just smoking every day.
He still does that, I'm pretty sure.
I think so too.
That's amazing. And then there's the nerds like me that stayed through the end of a master's degree, and I'm like, what did I learn in my violin education?
But eventually I did get master's degree in classical guitar performance, and I went to the Boston Conservatory just to there's a specific reason why I went.
Is that a Japanese thing? Just so after you've accomplished something, now you just want to hurt yourself?
No, the reason was, so back in 2008, I was starting the Video Game Orchestra, and this was the last semester of Berklee. And at the time, nobody was doing this kind of stuff. Nobody was thinking of even a symphonic rock stuff in that scale. And so a lot of people were treating me as if I was a super crazy dude. And so I was telling people hey, do you want to play in this ensemble? And they were like, what do you play? And I was like, video game music and symphonic rock. And they were like, no, thank you. So I used to get a lot of reaction like that, and particularly from a lot of conservatory people.
Sure, I can imagine.
Yeah, well, and that became kind of that annoyed me quite a bit. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to prove myself. I'm just going to go to conservatory and get the master's, so you can't say that to me.
Well, we feel your pain, because every time someone hears this music, they're like, how'd you come up with this new genre of insanity of just I'm like, I don't know. And then meanwhile, you come down to my basement, you're like, I'm doing the same thing as this. I'm like, there's someone doing the same thing and he's here. And you kind of looked at me the same way. You're sniffing us out. So you play violin. It was really weird because I don't know anyone else making music kind of like what we're doing. But if there was any other band out there, I went and watched what you do. And it's oh, We should take notes from that.
Yeah, that's why you're on the show. We're trying to figure out what we're doing wrong here.
Basically, we're trying to like steal all of your thoughts and then come to market with better stuff.
Yeah,
Exactly.
sounds good.
That's kind of what this entire show is. We just bring on guests, steal their knowledge.
I
Well,
want
that's
to hear more.
amazing.
No, sorry. Go ahead. If you had something to say, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
I was gonna say like it's amazing though, because like I saw your website and like you got the Bumblefoot and all those like crazy awesome dudes.
That's what Ben's good at. He's good at lassoing people and somehow tricking them into being on our project.
Oh, but speaking of Bumblefoot, if anyone listening hasn't listened to his episodes, they're incredible. Make sure you go check those out. He plays guitar throughout the majority of those. And
Nice.
you just see our jaws are on the
He
floor.
was like playing violin concertos on the guitar, and I'm like, I can't even play Tchaikovsky like that.
If you
anymore.
want to see a guy who like literally they're like who has the greatest memory of all time or the highest
Yeah.
IQ of anybody, highest IQ of anybody, like Bumblefoot's just like, oh yeah, I wrote this song when I was 7 and actually it's just
6.
this other song backwards and oh yeah, it's a Tchaikovsky thing, but you just change it and he just plays it and it's like he's like a synesthetic savant. And then everything out of him, he's like, oh yeah, particles might have memory. It's like he starts off sentences with things like that. You're like, oh, this is going way further than my brain. Strap in, guy's out of his mind.
Yeah, no, like I went to see Sanzo Apollo show in Paradise, I think it was like a few years ago. Yeah, that was amazing, and he can sing so well too. Which is cheating.
wild.
Like that's cheating. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing that's crazy. So, like, everyone knows him as a guitar player, but, like, meanwhile, like, I loved his latest thing. He's like, I'm so sorry to Asia fans. I can't go sing Asia because I'm touring with Sons of Apollo. But he just sang in Asia because his voice is so fucking good. You know, he used to, I saw him imitate, like, Axl Rose doing, like, Estranged when he played, like, and he hits the Guns N' Roses stuff. You're like, holy shit. So when he actually sings, it's like, that's coming out of that dude. Meanwhile, he can't even be controlled by one guitar. He has to have 2, and the second one doesn't even have frets.
And
It's ridiculous.
His intonation is perfect too.
I know, it's wild.
Well, it's the thumbtack. He has the thumbtack from Monopoly. That's what helps. It's the thumbtack.
I think it's called a thimble, but yeah.
Anyway,
Whatever.
so for anyone listening, you can go check out Bumblefoot's episode. But coming back to Shota, I want to ask you about your experience at Berklee. So you went there, and so for your undergraduate, what sorts of things were you working on, and how did it lead to you wanting to create the video game orchestra?
I majored in film scoring, and at the time there was no video game classes or anything in Berklee. But a couple of my friends and me, like we got together and say like, hey, let's start this club that focuses on video game music. And the club quickly gained like 150 people or something. And then I got the attention from the school, and the school immediately hired a teacher dedicated for teaching video game music courses.
Wow,
So
that's
yeah,
amazing.
like then
Good
like,
for
I was
you,
like,
man.
Yeah. So
No, that's
like,
amazing. That would never have happened at the school I went to. 'Cause I went to like a traditional kind of conservatory in a big
We
university.
should go to Shark Tank.
No,
we should be like,
seriously.
hey, they need video game music in schools. We need to be able to scale this. Can we find 25 Shotas?
But it's great you got that support though, because like I got in trouble all the time for playing rock music. My teacher's like, "What are you doing? You should be practicing your orchestra excerpts." It was not condoned to do other types of things. But anyway, go ahead. So you formed the club.
Yeah. So yeah, like that. Then one day I was like, what if we play with a live ensemble? And the next day I talked to all my friends and say like, hey, let's start this. That's kind of how it started. And it was just merely a spark of idea. And it wasn't like really like a planned business scheme or anything. And we went to this chapel in the city in Boston. And I told this booking lady, hey, I have no money. I'm a student. Can I book the place? And she was like, okay, 150 for the entire day or something. So I'm like,
oh, wow.
Great. so we booked the place, and then the place was completely packed. And we were like, okay, if this goes well, let's do another one. And we booked a bigger place, and I used the same tactic. And I talked to this booking manager of like bigger venue that fit like 500 people or something. And I said, I'm sorry, I have no money. I would trust me, like I will not destroy this place. And so he was like, okay, all right. Maybe
You still
like,
using that line?
Not anymore. Not anymore. Yeah, because I can't fake that anymore. Yeah.
Rolling in with trucks of like lights and stuff. I got no money, man. I'm broke.
Listen, if I was managing you, I would tell you something that's very real, which is you still can fake it and just stop speaking English so well for a moment.
Well,
That's the thing is, when you go to retail stores, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, okay, but like this has happened where I have like hyper brilliant people that that pretend to not speak English, and they're like, oh, discount. And they look at you like they're crazy, and then they walk off. They're like, yeah, the theory of relativity. We're going to go out to like the Ruth Chris steak joint. You hear them speaking totally fine, but they're like, I don't get it. I would use that all the way to the bank, every single gig, until I was into like Madison Square Garden. Like, we have no money.
See, like I don't use that, but like a lot of my friends have done it, and it actually works. Which is funny. Very
Case in point, proof of concept.
Yeah, but he has integrity, unlike you, Ben. So just kidding.
No, like
Are you?
It's funny. Like I would use
totally
it.
kidding. So coming back to some of your first concerts, what did that look like? Was it a band with orchestra? Had you already scored out some orchestral things to go for the video game music? Like what was the early structure of it?
So the first concert, obviously nobody was helping me, and also there's no published video game scores. There was none. So I had to transcribe everything and arrange them. And initially we had like 28 people, just a condensed orchestra with I play the guitar, but like not electric because the venue was a little too small. So we did that pure acoustic format, but it was definitely it definitely had like a scent of smell of.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Are you an Yngwie Malmsteen fan?
Oh, dude, like why not?
Okay, hold on. So you had the opportunity to go out in a giant ruffled shirt like J.S. Bach with your Strat with all the scallop stuff in front of a whole orchestra, completely unnecessarily with boots and stuff, and you chose to play acoustic?
Well, it was a small venue, he said. So.
Yeah, it's like
do you think Yngwie would have shown up with 30 fucking stack amps, Shota, am I right, that said Marshall, and then come on.
No, but it was like a Black Stars intro. Nylon guitar
Even
intro.
better.
Yeah.
He'd still play that in front of a bunch of Marshalls, even if they weren't plugged in.
No, but so like the second concert, like when we took it a little like step above, we had a band. And yeah, I fucking shredded.
And I fucking shredded.
Yes.
Yeah. So like at that point, like the orchestra was like 40 piece, 45, 50 piece or something. And there was a 5-piece band, like keyboard, 2 guitars, drummer, and bass. So we did the whole like rock orchestral stuff. And then after that, like PAX started in Boston, and they invited us to play. They heard about us, and they were like, "Oh, let's have you guys perform." And then Anime Boston, like it's a big anime convention, they invited us to do it. And like from then on, it just kept going up. It just kept going up.
As soon as you said shred, I thought to myself that I'm sitting next to this, which was, according to Jason Becker's dad, the cover of Perpetual Burn. Would you do me the honor of someday we can reunite Numbers, these guitars, your guitar, and we could do something for Jason, maybe with some of our orchestral friends, like maybe Siobhán and Mariko and Susanna, we should do something for him, because if there's anyone that understands what I'm trying to do, it should be you, right? Do you understand?
Like there is I think I told you about the whole production for Jason Becker's album, but like there is like there is a different orchestration take that I did initially. And I would absolutely love to record that, and like maybe we can just like
hell yeah,
play
man.
together.
So while we're on the topic, just for anyone that's watching or listening, I wanted to get into this at some point, but now it seems like a great time. Can you just touch on your relationship with Jason Becker a little bit?
Yeah, so I found Jason's record when I was like 16, I think. So at the time, I already started a guitar, and I was very addicted to going to a record shop and a CD shop, and I was just trying to find like anything I could find that has the coolest jacket. And a Perpetual Burn has like a Jason's photo, and it just looks cool. And I was like, I know this.
But hold on, but he's also wearing a cool jacket on the cover of the cool jacket, and on perpetual burn. He's holding this guitar.
I want it so bad.
Dude, do you understand? Just so everyone knows, you get it? Look, I got this in the mail, and I pulled it out for my fiance who had no idea. And I'm like, I had tears in my eyes. And she's just like, another guitar in the mail. I'm like, but it's not just another guitar. She's like, that's what you say about every guitar. And I'm like, you think you know, but you have no idea. And I went downstairs and I'm playing it, and I was like slop housing, like terrible sweep arpeggios. And I'm like, I was ashamed of myself. But I was so happy that I got to hold this guitar in my hand, because for years, I saw this. I had a printout. I actually went to Staples and printed out this picture because I couldn't find a poster on my wall. And now it's on my wall. So, and just so you know, Jason gave Shota a guitar. I had to have someone pay over $100,000 for this one. I mean, granted, it went towards, ALS and helping Jason, which is fine. But you're cool enough with him where he just gives you a guitar. How do you get so cool with Jason where he's like, you know what? Instead of charging you $6 figures for this, how about I'll just give you one.
Well, no, because what I did was like, so I knew how great Jason was, and I saw his Indiegogo campaign for the new album, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, I gotta contact him and just figure out like the ways to help him. So I contacted him and said, hey, I can do orchestra scores, and please let me help you, and I can definitely help something. So then down the road, he was the engineer of the album. He got back to me and he's like, hey, let's talk. And so we started talking, and then he was like, oh, do you want to just write the scores and just see like how Jason feels? And just did that, and Jason was happy, and that's kind of how it started. And obviously I didn't charge anything. I said like, like I don't need any money. This is like to help you and to support your new musical journey, and I want to see it happening. Yeah,
that's incredible.
God bless you, dude. God bless you. So everyone knows,
it's a lot of work.
some background. So for those that don't know, Jason is one of the greatest guitarists that ever lived, and that by 19 he was playing better than anyone you've ever heard in your entire life. Just a savant. I mean, he's a savant. Like, you don't play like that at that age unless, like, I mean, I almost feel like he was just like you said, the violinist the other day was a violinist in another life. Jason, like, was a guitarist in two lives. That's how good he is. And he got struck down with ALS. So when he was in Cacophony with Marty Friedman, he had just left to join David Lee Roth in replacing this guy, Eddie Van Halen. To be on actually an amazing record that did really well, and for Marty to go off and join Megadeth to do Rust in Peace, except that when he was going to go on tour with David Lee Roth, his hands didn't work as well and started getting heavy, and he was calling people, he couldn't. He went through the throngs of finding out that he had ALS. And it's like the most terrifying thing I know as a musician. Like, I mean, I thought I had carpal tunnel and I literally cried. Like this, imagine finding out that you're going to eventually lose your ability to do anything. And this guy recorded until he had to switch playing guitar with his hands, until he had to only play on a keyboard, until he had to basically look into a computer and open his mouth until he couldn't open his mouth anymore. And this guy has written books. His dad is an artist and a poet. Like, he's just the most amazing family and the most talented guy. So when I found out that he needed to sell these guitars, we were working with Marty Friedman, and the guy that is behind a lot of this, who works with me on The Neurotic Guitarist, was like, well, how do we get it deep in with Marty Friedman? And I made a sideways comment like, we should just save Jason Becker. And I had sent him the video years before because we had written a song called The World Is Over. That's basically an homage because it's Jeff Loomis and Marty Friedman who got duped into basically doing a Cacophony song, but just not knowing it. And Scott started talking to Marty, and Marty was like, I couldn't see anybody better having these guitars than you. So next thing I know, like, Marty's giving the intro to Jason Becker. I've since become friends with Jason Becker. We got Nita Strauss from Alice Cooper, and obviously she has her own #1 hit, so I don't want to even say from Alice Cooper, just the Hurricane Nita Strauss played one of his guitars on stage. We had the guys from Cradle of Filth. We had Brock, Siobhán's husband from Starset, come down and play it. And what we're trying to do now that we were able to raise all this money buying all three of his guitars, so the Numbers guitar and both guitars like this, we want people to be playing with it with these guitars. And actually on the next Lost Symphony song, we're having Hector Hellion, who's our new guitarist, and Cory are being relegated to only playing on Jason's guitars. So all the music you'll hear from those guys on the next Lost Symphony song will be recorded solely with guitars that are from Jason. And
That's amazing.
yeah, and we want, because the thing is, and I know you understand this, everyone can say how great he is, all that, but he's sitting by himself, trapped in his own mind. So I know the number one thing that I can do, it's one thing to raise money and afford him a better way of living, but it's another thing to entertain this dude. So like what I've tried to be is like the obnoxious guy that's like, oh, just keep putting these guitars in people's hands. And I know that he's smiling. I know that he's happy. In fact, I've talked to him on the phone and he said some things that are so nice to me that I won't even quote them because they're not real and nobody would ever believe them, and it makes him sound silly because he said he's just really nice to me. But it's just so inspiring, and I'm so glad that we were able to meet because I feel like this is something we need to do for Jason, and I'm so glad we can do this together because you're a guy that's already, you were doing this before me, dude. I took your game.
No, but anything I can do to support Jason, I would do anything, anytime. And I actually do take this guitar for tours and stuff. So we had like a pretty long tour in China back in 2019, and then this was a guitar. I had to take it. And all the important gigs that I do, I play on this guitar. And all the recordings, like last year I got to work with Marvel. So Marvel Games contacted me to produce an online concert to celebrate the release of their new game. Wow. So then I was like, gotta use this guitar.
So are you like the biggest fish in this pond? Because like we're trying to get into the pond, okay, so that you can eat us.
We're in the bait bucket next to the pond.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah. So I did Final Fantasy. And then I did this Marvel thing. I think who's it? Is it the X-Men in the Marvel universe? It's the Avengers. It's like, how much are you on Disney Plus?
There is a plan to put that on. I think the video is all online, so it's on Marvel's channel.
Watch Shota on Disney Plus. Mickey Mouse personally endorses him.
But I don't know if Mickey Mouse knows Brazilian Portuguese. If he knows, he may not put me on.
So we're going to leave that part out.
Well, I mean, here's the thing is, I mean, let's think about how many Jews went into all those Disney movies, and we know Walt Disney wasn't very nice. So, hey, now that we're past that.
Oh, my God. Always an off-color joke.
Yep, that's how we do it. But anyways, just kind of going back to the work you did with Jason, what was that experience like when you were actually, kind of had it going? Like, how was that collaboration?
Yeah, so I actually did go to his place, and I got to meet him, and that was like surreal. It was just incredible, and he's just such a nice person. Like he's just, I don't know what else to say about him. Like he's just so super like loving, caring, nice dude, and I always dreamed of meeting him in person. And when I was in this little island. And it was just like incredible. And I told him, hey, look, I'm going to fly again and I'll bring scores and maybe we'll ask some local musicians to kind of go through it, like do a reading session so he can hear things in context. So that's what we did. Next time I flew over, I brought all the finished scores, and then we got like 4 students, student quartet, to do like a live review of the pieces, and Jason was there, and he posted those videos on his YouTube channel. And we kind of like step by step solidified everything, and then eventually we got to the point where we were like, okay, let's do this. So then I flew to Bulgaria, and I knew production there. And because the cost, we couldn't afford the cost of doing full recording sessions here, so we flew over there, and I flew there, and with my friend.
Was it Sofia, Bulgaria?
Yes, Sofia.
Okay,
yes.
I thought it was Sarajevo, Bosnia, so I must have been crossing my wires. Sofia, Bulgaria, yes. Not Sarajevo, Bosnia. Okay.
Yeah. So we recorded some strings and also brass. And we did woodwinds remotely. Woodwinds are recorded in by my friends in the US. I told them about Jason, and they were like, dude, don't worry about money. We're going to do this. So
That's rad.
So yeah,
That's
we
amazing.
did. Yeah.
That's so cool. I don't want to change topics, but I kind of want to go back a little bit and fill in some gaps before we end the first episode. I want to ask, coming back to the video game orchestra again, how did it turn into a business? So you were kind of got onto the topic of, you started to do more and more concerts. You did, I think, a convention, right, for video games.
Yeah.
How did that catapult into an actual career doing, more massive concerts, traveling, doing tours?
Yeah. So like initially, like I had I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really plan for this to be like a business. And so like, we're just like doing shows and it was free. Like nobody was getting paid. It was fun and all that. But at one point I was like, we need to change this because otherwise we're going to just stay in this like friends fun, let's have fun kind of like just like amateur, group, and I didn't want that. So I said like, hey, let's charge for tickets and see what happens. And also we started conventions to pay us for our parents' fees and stuff. And that was a difficult time period for me because like I didn't know what I was doing. And so like a lot of people left. They were like, I don't like the way you do things. And it was fun before. Like, why do we have to do this? And why do you involve money? And you guys know this. And
yeah, sure.
Yeah. And it just, certain musicians, they want to just stay in this fun realm and instead of just going out and do business. And I understand where they're coming from too. But so we parted ways. A lot of people parted ways. And then like we went through a lot of member changes. So yeah, but then like I had to step up and just, take a risk and move forward.
Well, it sounds like you're a visionary, dude, because I mean, think about it. A lot of people have said like with Lost Symphony, they haven't heard anything like it. And I honestly had not heard much like it other than I always used to say, like, if you were to listen to like old school video game music or like some like, movie soundtrack stuff. But like the closest thing to what we're doing is what you're doing. And I have so much, first off, respect for the fact that in Japan, where I know that they have like they're very tight culturally and they're very conservative. You're just like, nah, I don't need to go to school. I'll get the stupid GED. I'm just going to go to the US. I know some smoke on the fucking water. Yep. Like I got my Blackmore. Oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to that Seattle place that they had all the American music thing, and I'm going to learn about music. And then I'm just going to fly to Bulgaria and orchestrate the greatest virtuoso guitarist's fucking record ever. And I'm going to play all the fucking video game conventions where all those girls are dressed like nymphs, and they're going to pay me. They're going to pay me to put all my friends on stage, 58 of us.
How's it feel to have your life boiled down to this rant?
It's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate. So. But,
that's
I think
crazy, dude.
But I think it was good that like I didn't know anything. And because I was just so stupid to the point that I would just risk so much. And one of the best and worst thing I've ever done was booking Symphony Hall, Boston Symphony Hall. And they were like, oh, the deposit is this much. And I had just that money. I was like, let's go. And so I did. And this was back in 2012. Yes. So 2012, October 7th. So we booked the show. And I was like, you know what? Like, we're going to just like pack the place and we're just going to bring the full orchestra and like everything. And obviously, like at some point, I realized how much money I'm risking. And I didn't have any of that. So I talked to like all my friends and please promoting. And I did all kinds of things to like make it work and did a Kickstarter campaign to fund the live album. So part of it can compensate the show. And magically, like things worked out. And because it was just so hyped, like TV came over and newspapers came and like they covered all the stuff, and Japanese national TV network came over, like they flew over and then like they did a show for me. And so, yeah, like that. And then we released an album, and that was really like the moment when I knew, okay, this can really become a business. And then like we got calls from China. They were like, do you want to tour? I'm like, sure, why not? Let's go. And yeah. And everybody was started calling me, and then people were like, "Hey, like we saw your show. Can you record for us too?" And that's how the recording production started. And of course I say yes. I just say yes to everything. And I'm able to deliver, fortunately, but I just say, yes, of course.
That's a trend amongst most of the successful people that we speak with.
Yeah. So then the one of the first gigs I got, I'm just so lucky. And also doing this kind of like a big orchestra rock show in the US as a Japanese person is just like eye-catching, right? For the people in Japan, it's unheard of. And there are a lot of great Japanese musicians in the US, but at the director producer level, you don't see any of them. So then they were like, "Oh, like great, like you can do this and that," right? And one of the composers I met was Masashi Hamauzu, who I dearly respect. He's an amazing composer. He wrote music for Final Fantasy 13. And also 10 as well. And so I got to meet him at the convention because he was a guest as well. And so I was there too. And we just kind of bonded. Like for 3 days straight, we were just like drinking, eating together and just talking about life and everything. And so he says, "Oh, like we'll talk soon." And as he was departing. And I was like, "Okay, great." And so he's like, "Can you fly to Japan this day?" And I'm like, "Sure, I haven't gone back for a while, so sure, why not?" So he says, like, "Come to this address." So I went to the address and I see the sign of the building, Square Enix.
Oh yeah, in Tokyo. Yeah. So then I go to the room that I was supposed to go, and he's there, and the audio director of Square Enix was there, and they were like, "Okay, so you're gonna work on Final Fantasy?" And I'm like, "Yes, of course." I knew this. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's really how it happened. And he was like, "Okay, your duty is to orchestrate all my scores and assemble an ensemble in Boston and also do the mixing." So I said yes to everything again. And we delivered. And then our collaboration started, and we worked on like 4 Final Fantasy games, quite a lot of them. And when we did 15, I got to actually compose some of the stuff. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Does that, I want to know this, and Siobhán, this applies to you too, because Siobhán was on Queen's Gambit, and I had said to her, "I bet you more people heard you in a weekend than had seen you in your entirety, ever touring or ever doing anything ever." And I feel like with Final Fantasy that so many people have played that. Like it's such a ubiquitous thing. Like
my husband's a huge fan of it. He's played every game
do
and
you
is obsessed
think
with the music.
That more people have heard you now from that, like not even necessarily knowing who your band was, but because you're in their lives than you've ever touched touring? Because like how many people are into Final? Like, is there a number you know? It's got to be huge.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 15 in particular, it sold 10 million copies, I think.
10 million. So that's basically like Use Your Illusion by Guns N' Roses.
Yes, pretty much.
Yes. Do you know any other video games that need music?
We got some music. I always look for like somebody to work with, and also I always look for good engineers. And so like,
hi,
we gotta hang out.
How about mediocre engineers?
You're a great engineer. What are you talking about?
I can make a mean pot of coffee. You have no idea.
But believe it or not, like it's so difficult to find a good engineer in this field, the symphonic metal stuff.
I can imagine,
it's just so hard. And like,
well, we did everything the wrong way, man. Like, let me tell you that. So like, Cory and I have learned everything not to do. It's like, hey, if you do like 75 tracks of violins, all with these same microphones and all, like, you're gonna get a bunch of these frequency kids, like.
No, it's an insane texture to deal with. I don't know how anyone does it. I
don't know how you'd ever
I could never write like an instructional manual, but I could definitely write a book on every mistake that you will make and how I made it, and then how it taught me not to make that mistake again, at least a few more times.
I mean, like I grew up the same way. So like when I started writing orchestral scores, I had no knowledge. I had absolutely zero knowledge. And even though I went to Berkeley to study film scoring, I didn't learn like actual orchestration. I was learning MIDI, but like that was it. And so when I started Video Game Orchestra, like I got yelled at from the players, and they were like, "Oh, you can't play this, and you can't do this." And so I was like, "Oh shit, I have to like really study." So I bought a bunch of scores, movie scores, and classical scores. I just like every gig after gig, I just like studied the scores, and that's all I did. I have no academic lessons.
Can I tell you the secret?
Yes,
I'm gonna tell you the secret. So you get something like crazy, like let's say Fantasy for Four Hands by Schubert. We did that with La Symphony, and it's just for two piano. Right? And you just go, okay. And you just look at these lines. You go, that's oboe. And then you look at these lines and you just take the MIDI. And you just copy the MIDI from the piano. And you're like, okay, this whole area. And then next thing you know, Schubert has arranged his own piece with you because all you need to do is take the MIDI and then get massive. And that's how you do it, Shota. So I just want to make that easier for you next time.
Like it's, thanks for the tip. I would just do that next time.
This is something I wanted to get into with you, though, because as somebody, for example, so La Symphony was my first experience having to orchestrate anything. And I've played in orchestra my whole life, but it took a lot to figure out. And I don't think I'm an expert by any means, but I think it's a lot harder than it sounds to sit down and turn something into something.
Marty Friedman yelled at you. You're an expert now.
Well, Marty,
no, you got school. You got school, so now you're an expert. You went through a master class.
Well, I think it's easier to write just for an orchestra, but like when you combine it with like choir, rock band, it's very difficult. It's super difficult, and also it takes far longer to write that kind of stuff. But but you know,
when you think of sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, I grew up listening to symphonic metal. Like I love Rhapsody, Halloween, Angra, and S&M by Metallica, and all those records. And I think the fusion of orchestra and rock music is just where it's at. So
yeah, it's incredible when it's pulled off, right? But really does, it comes down to, you have these two genres that are in and of themselves huge, and then you just stick them together, and you have to make them still both have that size and everything, and that's where the challenge comes in.
Yeah, and it's so hard during live shows too, because like when you do a show, like unless you really, really carefully think about the setup, like all the orchestra players will complain how loud the drums are.
Welcome to Orchestra
we had
Nerds.
This one crazy cellist who hated the buzz of the guitar amp. And so like she stops during the middle of the rehearsal, she stops the entire group. And she says, "Stop! Please stop!" And we're like, "What?" And she says, "The guitar amp is buzzing, and it's not in the key."
It's in B, because that's the sound of noise.
Yeah, but like the key was in B flat, so like she wanted to be in B flat.
That's hysterical.
Oh my god! Buy a noise gate. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we don't use an amp anymore on stage.
Well,
we all go direct.
Here's the thing I also learned. Okay, so Danny Elfman's one of my favorites, and what I learned is he doesn't really do the orchestrations. He like comes up with these crazy ideas, and then people do all the crazy orchestrations. So Brian, my brother, and I used to compose the La Symphony stuff doing MIDI. But I'm like, now we have Siobhán, and then we duplicated her with Susanna, who's incredible, and Mariko, who are two of the most virtuoso cellists I've ever heard in my fucking life. I'm like, I'm going to take three amazing players, and then I'm going to just write a hummable theme, and then say, do that. So instead of writing stuff that she's like, this is for viola, not violin. Fuck you, play it. And she's like, you don't know anything about violin. You wrote on the wrong staff. Like, okay, whatever. It's MIDI. I'm just letting her do it now. It's called delegation. So like, I love what your friend did with Final Fantasy. He's like, oh, I talked to this dude. He's a crazy person in Boston. He'll do everything. Let's fly him to Japan, not tell him anything, and then let's make him make this perfect.
Sounds
Pretty
like
much,
La Symphony.
That's Siobhán for me.
Like I started delegating. Like I hire people to do stuff, and it's just like by myself, I can only do so much.
Sure.
And I know what I'm good at. So like I want to do only the things I'm good at.
That's good. And that's a hard thing to realize too, because as someone that's creative, sometimes you want to do all of the things. And, you know, I can relate to that. It's hard.
Yeah. It's hard to let go. It's very difficult. And it was very hard for me. And I thought I could do everything. And I thought I had infinite amount of time every time I did a show. But like in the end, I got burnt out and just couldn't execute. And I had made mistakes. But that wouldn't have happened if I delegated. Right.
Well, that's why you have me, Siobhán, and Cory. We're here to help you.
Yes. No, like I seriously, like we gotta hang out, and I gotta go visit you guys. And
well, Siobhán's coming to town in like a month, so we should absolutely hang out because we're gonna rent Mechanics Hall. We're gonna do our next Lost Symphony song, and we have Siobhán and the psychopaths that are Susanna and Mariko. Like, I don't know if you've heard Mariko cello.
Mariko
that's
is
what she
also is. She's Japanese, and she came. I was when you were telling your story. She similarly came to the U.S. speaking no English, and was the first cellist in my band.
She was like, "Oh, they put me on TV when I was 8," and I'm like, "Oh, you must be good." And then I heard her play. Her glissando sound like a dinosaur. Like she's she's ridiculous.
She's like a rock and roll cellist with some classical background. Yeah, she's
nice. Yeah. And she was playing. Did you see her playing Paganini's 24th Caprice the other day? I'm like, Siobhán, she's like secretly trying to like troll you.
No, like if you guys are doing anything, I would love to join. And
yeah,
I'm here.
We'll definitely be in touch because we have some cool stuff coming up, and we'll just once again pick your brain, steal your knowledge, and make sure we do it right.
Wow.
So we got 8 minutes left or so in this episode here. So why don't we kind of wrap up? So we've covered coming over here, getting over to Berkeley, failing by actually graduating from Berkeley. But then somehow succeeding by starting this kick-ass band. What's going on with Video Game Orchestra right now?
So we are playing a bunch of shows in Brazil in November if everything goes well.
You guys are huge in Brazil, aren't you? I see these like posts all the time from you down there.
Yeah. And we are playing at this big convention called Brazil Game Show. They attract like 300,000 people in 4 days.
Brazil Game Show. So it's another name that's right on the nose there.
Yeah, and we're gonna be on the main stage. We're like headlining the event.
So you're basically headlining Woodstock in Brazil.
Kind of, yeah. And they are expanding to like seven days instead of like 4 days because like they were like fuck COVID, we're gonna do.
Does
like more.
Soulfly open for you?
No.
Does Matt Cavalera come up to you and start talking to you and like you're just like, I'm sorry, man, we got to go on stage, get this guy out of here.
But Anger comes, like they come over and see us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I get to hang out with them and like Anger's drummer Bruno, like Bruno's been playing with us, so he's like our drummer now. Yeah, and he does all recording sessions for us as well. So yeah, if you want a good drummer, I can recommend him to you guys.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, like we're doing the Brazil, and like around that time, I think we're gonna probably just stick around in Brazil and do like South American tour. We're talking with a bunch of promoters down there, and hopefully we can make it to like maybe like 10 shows, 15 show tour in the entire.
So when are you gonna be down there?
So I think it's end of October to like in November.
We should go.
I actually might be down there around that time.
Dude, like come, please come.
Yeah,
that sounds.
We're going to visit my wife's family. I would totally go and be like, yeah. How would that be introduced? I'm meeting like her whole family. Oh, by the way, we're going to this rock show. I know a guy. Don't worry.
And he shouts you out from stage in front of 100,000 people.
Wait, do you do live sound as well? Like, do you do like monitors?
Well, I have panic attacks in front of a live soundboard. If that's what you mean, I'm happy to do that. No, because like
we are bringing our technical director who is FOH. He's doing FOH as well, but like we need like one person to take in monitors. And Brazil is like always hit or miss. Yeah. Sometimes you get great people, sometimes you get like really horrible people.
Let's chat.
Yeah.
That might be doable.
Basically, we got you on the show so you could just like utilize all of our skills because
we're really just looking for jobs.
We want to work for you. You literally. Well, this is the first time. This is the first time I've ever been on the show, and I've talked to Grammy Award winners. I've talked to Miles Kennedy. Got asked to be in Zeppelin, okay? And this is the first time where I'm just like, dude, show me your ways, please. Just let us follow in your footsteps. We'll take your scraps.
Yeah, anytime.
We'll play the small stage in front of 300,000 people in Brazil. We'll take the small stage before Angra.
Yeah, but like but Brazil thing happened by chance, and I started going there to like game conventions, like because they started inviting me. And the Brazil Game Show, the CEO, the event is such a great guy, and he's like, I love video games. I want to bring you guys all. So that's
amazing.
That was it. That was literally it, and that's how it happened.
Wow.
And he took me
How,
to
how
like,
big is your band that you actually fly to Brazil? Like, how many people
we usually travel with like 10 people, and then like the rest is like we hire the orchestra locally, and also like some crew. Yeah, because the last thing I want
there
is
like 58 fucking people flown to Brazil.
gosh,
like that
yeah.
sounds like a
dude,
lot
like that
of
would be the
logistics.
Worst tour.
You know what? Hold on. Here's what you should do. You should call Ron from Starset and be like, Ron, okay, there's 58 people that need to get over to Japan or Brazil.
And he'll
Figure
find
it
out how
out.
to get you there.
Yeah,
for
he'll have
free.
like a
figure
shipping
it out.
container ready or something.
Yeah.
Like this
Like,
one's
all right,
unmarked.
there's a volcano out that way. Don't go that way.
Yeah, but like having like 50 musicians traveling with you is like the last
Oh
thing
no,
I want to
it's
do in
too
my
much.
life. It's too much. Like 10 is like manageable if I try. So, yeah, but yeah, so we're doing that, and there are a bunch of other people who are asking me to produce concerts, because I do produce anime concerts and video game concerts, like besides my stuff. And we got to play in New York last November at this event called Anime New York City, and we featured the music from My Hero Academia. It's a big anime show right now, and yeah, like we sold out 2,500 tickets in 8 minutes. That was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah, and we did something similar. So like we had the band and a string section, and it was cool.
Incredible.
Fun stuff.
Video Game Orchestra. The website looks like vgo-online.com.
Yep.
I'm looking at you rocking out right now. As soon as I open the page, nice video pops up.
Yeah, so that was that's from the Marvel show.
Can I have one
Very
request
cool.
though?
Yeah.
Can I have one request? If we do something for Jason, can we dress up like Yngwie, like J.S. Bach?
Dude,
And then we can be up there with our guitars, and we could just be holding them with all like the flary stuff. And fake Marshalls in the background.
Yes.
Even fake Kempers is fine with me. Just put the lights
Fake
on.
Kempers.
But like even if we dress up like Yngwie, we have to speed up his record and just play faster than Yngwie, right? Like Jason did.
Yes.
Yeah. I got to meet Jason's like childhood friend in his place. So Mike is the guy, and he went to like middle school and high school with Jason, and he said everything was just so easy for Jason. He said like Jason picked up a guitar like weeks after you met him, like he was like fucking playing.
Well, hold on. This is something I've realized about savants. So Les Paul, like on a Wednesday, learned how to play guitar, and then like 2 weeks later, he found out the guy. He was like, "Oh, how come my teacher isn't here?" They're like, "Oh, we hired you instead." Like he literally replaced his teacher within like 2 weeks. Carol Kay, when I talked to her, it was the same thing. She's like, "Oh yeah, so he taught me a guitar chord on Monday. Then by next Friday, he's like, do you need a Super 400?" And she was playing in all the jazz clubs by the time she was like 17 in LA as a white chick. Like it wasn't cool back then. It wasn't okay. And she's like, normally they'd let you know you need to get off the stage. No one ever let me know I need to get off the stage. That's because she was born like Mozart, like Jason Becker, like Les Paul, these crazy, ridiculous people that like, I see arpeggios. And that's the only, because honestly, if you listen to a guy like Rusty Cooley, who's one of the fastest guitarists in the world, he was on Lost Symphony, and he says it perfectly. He's like, you grew up listening to Richie Blackmore and Al Di Meola, whatever, and then Van Halen came about, and there was Randy Rhoads, and then there was Yngwie, and then you're like, where do you go from here? And then there was Jason Becker, and you're like, oh. And then you find out the guy is like 7 years younger than you were when you started playing guitar, and you're like, oh. So the only way I can explain that without hating myself is he was given extra.
Yeah.
I hold his guitar because I'm hoping osmosis will work, because I want it to. ALS awareness for Jason, so that maybe I'll get some good notes out of it.
Right.
All right.
Well,
And on that note,
we're coming to the end of part one.
This is the end?
And
This is the end?
Just part one. Just part
We
one.
still have part
we haven't
two.
even
Yes.
we haven't even touched on soundtrack. We haven't touched on a lot of things you have going on, so I'm super excited to jump into part two.
Yeah.
But make sure you follow the links. We'll have every link for the band and all the stuff below in the description. Check out 2020-d.com, and we will see you next week.
My wife was with me. I remember we ate at a restaurant that had like all, I think it was called raw or something like that. Like it was all just like raw food, nothing cooked. and it was really good. And then I had the massive shits, and I had such bad fucking diarrhea. I was just like ready to explode all over the fucking place, and I couldn't find the bathroom. And I think I did that show with them the whole time, clenching, trying not to shit all over the.
Oh my God.